Fantastic. Well, a very warm welcome to everybody as you join us in our Customer Success Thought Leadership series of webinars. I'm sure you know, my name is Rick Adams, CEO of Practical CSM, and I'm joined today by Jason Noble, who is the VP Customer Success for Vinley. And a regular here on the series. So hi again, Jason.
Thank you, Rick. Great to be here. Really excited to kind of continue this conversation.
Yeah, no, we've always, well, and it is a continuance because actually the last time you were on, we were talking about the same topic, and that was about a year ago. And they say a year in politics is a long time. I think a year in AI is a millennium.
I think you're right. You know, a year in tech is fast, but what we've seen over the last 12 months in AI is incredible. So yeah, really excited to continue this.
Likewise, I'm really going to be really interested to pick your brains and see what where we can go with this. So just to say to people as you join us, you know, this conversation, of course, is a conversation that is not going to give definitive answers because we're learning as we're going, and the situation is changing rapidly as we move forwards, and we're hoping that you will join in this conversation. So I'm opening the chat window, and please make sure that if you want to participate, that you just choose the everyone option for your message, just so that not just myself and Jason, but other participants here can see whatever you type, so that if we then answer your question, that it makes sense to them because they've seen your question. But we would love you to ask questions, but also submit your experiences about customer success and AI and what you've been up to, and also your thoughts and your opinions about it as well, because they're equally valid to ours. And I think that just makes it, and I'm sure, Jason, you'd agree with me, makes it a more valuable conversation if we all contribute.
Completely.
On that note, actually, I would ask you, please, we'd be interested to know, currently, is your organization using AI in any shape or form that you are aware of? So if they are, please say yes. And if they're not, please say no. And if the answer is yes, and you are willing to do so, then we'd be interested to know, well, what are you doing with AI as well? If you can give us a one sentence or couple of sentence overview of what you're doing with it, then that'd be lovely. But most importantly, if you could just let us know in the chat window whether you are currently, as an organization, you know, whether you are using it or not, yes or no. Maybe if you wanted to add on the nuance for those that it may be relevant to, maybe you're thinking about it, then you can also tell us that if that's the situation. So I'm going to answer. Actually, I'm going to say yes. We use it a lot in our communications with customers, and we also use it with our marketing. So that's my answer. Is that's what we're doing with AI at the moment. And I see. Oh, hi, David. So David Delosier is with us. Organizationally, no, but personally, you're dabbling a little to spice up your replies to customers. Yeah, it's amazing how it can help, right? I mean, you think you can compose a great message, and then it can really help as well. So thank you for that. And others, you know, please do contribute and join in. We'll probably get more people joining in. Sometimes that takes a while for people to get here and get going anyway. So, well, let's get started. So for those who don't know Jason, let me just maybe give the opportunity for Jason to introduce himself. So Jason, who are you? What do you do, and how did you get to where you got to?
Absolutely. So Jason Noble, Rick, you and I have known each other for a good few years. I think since the beginning of the world of customer success as we know it now. I've been around in technology industries, both startups and enterprise organizations, for a long time, 20, 30 years now, but always working in the customer facing parts of the organization. So I've led customer services, account management, program management, service delivery. And for me, the evolution into what we now call customer success has been a really natural one for me to do. It's always been about delivering value, outcomes, and solid relationships for our customers and helping them grow. And I say we've always been doing it. There's just a lot more focus on it now as we've seen technology change. So I've worked with many industries globally. I've run teams globally. I'm currently with an organization called Vinley. Vinley is a US based mobility intelligence software organization. We've been around about 8-9 years. We fundamentally look after mobility, how you move, data, and provide insights, opportunities, all through machine learning and AI on that. So it's a fundamental part of what we do. We work with big European organizations, fleet management customers, insurance customers. My role is leading our European team, but also leading our global customer success function. And kind of what brings me here, I mean, Rick, you and I, as we said, we had this conversation a year ago. We're all very aware of ChatGPT, and I think David's comments on the chat really show everyone is now more aware. Even my daughter is more aware of what AI is, and it's a really key point to talk about. You know, how does this impact customer success? And we're talking specifically about customer success, but how's it going to impact us in all of our roles? And I know that the conversation you did with you previously as well really kind of feeds on from that. And there's a lot of similarities I feel now between where we are and when the internet started. When I say started, where it really took off and businesses took advantage of it, and it's really that inflection point. I think we're beginning to scratch the surface as to what AI can mean for us, and we're on that massive change curve now. So it's kind of that V1, if you want, maybe not even V1 of what AI can do, but it's a really, really exciting place to be, and very difficult to say, you know, 5-10 years on, even 20 years on, where are we going to be? I don't think either of us could have predicted 30 years on, you know, back in the early 90s, what the internet would be today.
Oh, no, not at all.
And it's really exciting to see how that changes. And I think there's a lot of worry about AI, but you look at what the internet's done for us all as humans, both in work and outside of work, and I think it's had massive benefits. And that I really believe we'll see that from AI. We've just got to figure out the right way to do it. So it's a really key topic, really good one to have, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you for that. And so the title for our topic today is AI, increased productivity or cause of redundancies? So it sounds to me like you're more on the former than the latter. Jason, you seem quite positive about it. Is that fair?
Yes, absolutely. I think it's kind of we're going to have to rethink some roles. You know, I think there's a lot of automation coming. There's a lot more automated intelligence we can put them around them. But I think it's for me, it's really positive. And I think we're going to see benefits for all of us. I think it's more an evolution of roles. So I think roles will change, and it's us understanding what those changes will be.
Which, of course, happens throughout life, right?
Absolutely.
Always has done or always will do. There's not too much of a demand for people to grind corn into flour using a millstone these days, right? We've automated it. So, okay, I'm going to take the opposing view just for the fun of it. And I'm going to say, actually, it is going to be a cause of redundancies. And you and I, and you, whoever you are, needs to watch out. Because whereas in previous, what I would describe as like revolutions, about how we go about doing things in the world, these have, for example, there was an agricultural revolution where it used to be that everything was done manually. You know, you sowed or planted manually, you plowed, you know, with yourself behind an ox, and that was it, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, they automated it and brought in all sorts of machinery to do on the land the job that with just 2 or 3 people on a farm that was automated, that maybe had 100 people working on that farm to do. And there was an awful lot of disruption at the time, and things like the Jared marches, and people were killed, and there was rioting, and there was hangings, and there was jailings, and there was all sorts. And of course, it eventually settled down to be an automated agricultural system. And if you wanted work, you went into the cities. And so that, well, so what, Rick? Well, that's nothing to do with today. We're not agricultural workers. But of course, the same thing then happened with other similar sorts of large revolutions about how we do things, like garment manufacturing, for example, and the rise of things like, you know, the production line and heavy manufacturing. And so in each of these, you know, turns of the wheel where innovation comes in and technology comes in, well, what does it do? Why have a massive, great big weaving machine? Well, because you can weave cloth with a weaving machine better and finer quality at a cheaper cost than all of those people who were employed to weave it. And you could argue it's better because there was a heck of a lot of injuries going on as well, and the dust, and, you know, there's a lot of reasons why you wouldn't want to be doing it. Like, who'd want to be down a mining? I'd far rather, you know, automate mining. I don't want anyone to have to go down a mine and do mining. What a horrible job. But nevertheless, you know, what are we all going to do? Because we've shifted and we've shifted and we've shifted. So what's left? Well, we're all in offices doing white collar jobs now, and I'm going to suggest that AI is after those jobs. So there we go. Let's see where this goes, because I would say that obviously, you know, we are a tool using species. That's kind of what sets us apart from dogs and cats and pretty much anything else, and has enabled us to, you know, dominate the world as we have done. And of course, there are certain animals who could be pointed out as saying, well, that particular like type of monkey knows how to use a twig to get ants or whatever. But basically, you know, they're not flying up to the ISS in their monkey spaceships, right? We are the tool using species, and what do tools allow us to do? They allow us to do a lot more than we could do without them, a lot better than we could do without them, and this is just an extension of that. It's just a natural kind of progression in a way, in a sense. And I think that, so therefore it is still, you know, I'm very excited by it as well, but I do think that we do need to be aware of the fact that what we're basically now saying is, whereas in previous revolutions they came for the agricultural jobs or the manufacturing jobs, I'm saying, well, now they're coming for the white collar jobs, the office jobs. And what do we do in an office? What do we do in an office? We make coffee, we chat, but what actually do? We communicate, right? That's what IT is all about. It's about information technology and the communication of that and the decision making around information. So we master and manage information, and I'm suggesting that AI actually can do a lot of that for us. And so what I've got is a brief little presentation that will take me no more than 5 minutes, if you'll allow me to present that, Jason. And then I'd like to hand over to you to sort of tell me what you think about it and how this then fits specifically within customer success. So let me just share my screen. Here we go. Good. So the intelligent decision-making process that is apparently what we in the office is meant to be doing, right? We're in information technology. We manage information. We make intelligent decisions based upon the information we have. And of course, the better the information, the better the decisions. So let's take a look at the journey that we could go on where tools get involved with that, starting with an obvious start point of getting no help whatsoever. And we gather the information and make sense of it and make the decisions. We do it all, through to maybe basic tools that just purely help us to understand what the current situation is and help us define, well, what's happening. Maybe the next level up would help us to explain, well, why is it happening? So another layer of intelligence on top. Maybe we could go a little bit further and say, okay, well, if we then extend the data forwards into the future, we can start to predict trends as to what's likely to happen. We don't know for sure, but if the trend continues, then this is what's going to happen next in the future. And from that, we could then get more clever with our tools, and maybe our tools could help us to make recommendations. Well, if this is what's going to happen in the future, then the recommendations are, this is what we ought to do about it. And we could go further than that and actually get a tool that then analyzes those options and comes up with the best option and says, well, then this is the best action. And we could even then get a tool that doesn't even then tell us. It just goes right ahead and talks directly to the real world, the system, and actually then gets it to do whatever needs to be done without our involvement at all. And all of these are current in our world right now. So, of course, from the AI perspective, really, AI as we're defining it these days would only come in these latter ones, right? But the level of intelligence of the tool is growing as we go down the page, and the level of reliance on our intelligence is reducing as we go down the page. And so the first two are just purely looking at historical analysis, what has already happened, and just telling us, here's what's happened and why. Then moving to more intelligence by saying, okay, well, let's then extend into the future and predict, here's what's going to happen. And then take that further and say, and therefore, this is what we should do about it in order to steer what happens in the future. And we can take this and give an example that we're all familiar with in the automotive industry with cars. So, for example, at the very basic level, descriptive, the tool might tell us you've got half a tank of fuel left, just a little monitor that says that. The diagnostic might say why. Well, that's because you've driven 120 miles since you last filled up. The predictive might then say, well, then in that case, based on your consumption level, if you drive at similar sort of types of roads and speeds, then you're going to be able to drive for about another 120 miles before you need to fill up again. And the prescriptive could then join up with a GPS system and say, and therefore you've got some options here. You could go that way, and there's a petrol station or fuel station in about 75 miles that will allow you to fill up. Or if you go this way, then there's one within 93 miles. They're both within your 120-mile range. So you've got those options. What do you want to do? And we can do what we want. Or it can just tell us what to do. It can say, go this way. And if you go that way, then we've still got the emergency the other way, just in case that station is closed, for example. Or, of course, if we've got a Tesla and we're trusting it, we could just, it just says, sit back, we'll deal with all of this for you. And it will drive the car. So it doesn't need to tell us. It just goes directly to issue the command to the real world. And then it interacts with the physical system, in this case, the vehicle itself, and drives the vehicle. So you've got the intelligence driving the vehicle. So there's how intelligence sort of comes more and more to play outside of our own intelligence. How does that fit in the world of customer success management, Jason?
Rick, we talked before. I love this way you're visually showing this here, and the different levels of intelligence and intelligence around decision making. It's really real world, and I think we're kind of now in this latter stages of this, and even going beyond this, things happening without any human involvement. And it's really going back to your earlier point about communications and potential people roles being made redundant. The interesting thing here is there is no human being made redundant in this process here, this example of a car. The driver is still getting from point A to B. What we're doing is taking away from him.
Well, if you're a delivery driver, why would you be needed? You could just
absolutely no, but it could change. So it's an interesting model. I've had this discussion with an Uber driver once, that it changes the role of what potentially an Uber driver could be. So instead of an Uber driver having one vehicle that he drives everywhere, that Uber driver could have two vehicles that are fully automated, that he's effectively running his own fleet of little taxi vehicles. So it doesn't necessarily put him out of work, it changes the role. So
if he's driving 6 cars instead of 1 car, does that not surely mean that 5 Uber drivers no longer are required?
Not necessarily, no.
Okay.
I think it's going to shift. I think it will shift individual roles. We're going to see an evolution of what roles will be.
Yes.
Where people, where's the real value from humans in these? Is it important, and is there value in a human doing this data analysis, making the decisions? Right. That's where I think that the differences are going to be, and it's an evolution of roles. So I don't think there will be changes. Your examples about the agricultural revolution, the industrial revolution, we're now the information, the data revolution. There absolutely will be changes. What I think is different now, though, is I think people are in, particularly us white collar or information workers, are in better positions to be able to start understanding what our roles need to be and how we can still add value in the process here. And I think that's a fundamental difference. When you've talked around customer success, it's really interesting because I remember that one of the first conversations we had, Rick, 6-7 years about the future of customer success, what it should be called. And we talked around the idea of value consulting, and it really is like an evolved management consulting.
I'm still not happy with the name customer success.
And I think, but it's great because I think more and more people are unhappy with it, and we're going right now through this shift. But we still don't know what it's going to call. But for me, it becomes more about that human to human interaction and that understanding of humans and adding additional value, not just based on data we're getting from systems and services, but understanding your customers, understanding their relationships. And I think we're going to move more in that direction. I think customer success will become an evolved management consultancy. And I think a lot of the skills that CSMs have today are very, very well suited to that. And automation and AI will take away some of the more mundane parts of the roles. And even today, you know, CSMs are relying more on tools to help provide that data to them. They're already doing this. They're not doing the analysis themselves. Well, there's still a long way to go to see what that analysis is and to improve that. But I think we're already seeing this shift here. And I think the human brings in more around abstract value, which is a really difficult thing to pinpoint what it actually is. And I think it's still based on human relationships. You know, your point earlier on about all businesses is about communications. Well, ultimately, who are we communicating with? And if we say that AI can communicate for us, who's AI going to communicate with? Is it going to communicate with another human or AI? And I think we've got to take a step above it and say, well, okay, well, what does the human do? And there are some things that we still don't know. So for me today, AI supplements what we do as customer success. And it's another tool. As David said in the chat, you know, I think a lot of us are using it, Chat GPT and the like, for how can I improve conversations, be it email, be it reviews, be it presentations. And there's a massive value add there. And that's helping us. I think there's definitely helping us. It's not replacing us, it's helping. And I think it's still new for customers. I think a lot of customers will be very wary. And if everything was automated and it was just a machine communicating with them. And today you can tell. I only received another so-called personal email the other day, outside of work.
It was
but it's dear noble Jason. And you think that's not rocket science. Get my name.
Well, they got it right. That's a good title though.
It is, but it would have been Adam's Rick as well. So it's right. And again, it goes back to their back-end database. Someone's not tested this, someone's not run through this, the data's wrong. And that I hate for us to be in a position where it's just machines communicating with humans. So I think there's a massive value that we can still bring into it. That for me is where customer success managers still come in to help. You know, we're getting today more and more data. And I think all of us are in positions where there's too much data for us as humans to be able to do on our own, to look at what it means. I look at our industry now, you know, we're dealing with millions of vehicles, different data sets. It's impossible. You need tools, you need AI to help you with that. But there's still the need for a human. We talked before, Rick, about chatbots. And I still stand by it. I've yet to find a chatbot that works, that really can answer as a human. And there aren't many that, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm using the wrong ones. I put it out there, but there are not many there aren't many that are not difficult to throw with a human question. And again, that may change. That may change over time, but there are still points or still times when it's a human being I want to speak to that a machine cannot understand the context, cannot understand the nuances. And I don't think we're going to get away from that point for a while yet. I think we're still seeing that there. I think there's interesting things in AI. If you look at how AI can help do context analysis on conversations with customers, so the likes of Zoom, there's a lot of tools that sit on top of Zoom that do sentiment analysis. So for customer calls,
Yeah,
emails, and
really
that's
interesting.
interesting.
It
And it can
is.
give me some ideas. It can give me some insights, but it doesn't take me away from it. So I think it's helping us, but I don't think AI replaces the relationship side of customer success or business. And I think there's a massive value still that human beings bring into that. Now I'm saying now, like anyone, technology changes. I think this is changing rapidly, but I think right now we're at that pivotal point where there's still a big amount that us as human beings and information and data professionals, which I think we all are in the world of technology, we can still bring to it. And I think we can absolutely, AI in the world of CS can help us automate some of the more painful parts of the job and the roles, and start helping us add more value in there. We talked before, Rick, again going back years, about this idea. You know, there's big conversations about tech touch, and it's now the world of digital customer success. But for me, it's technology enabled customer success. I still want technology to bring the human being in at the right point, so not just fully automated. And there are too many organizations that are just trying to fully automate it, and I don't think we're there yet either. So I think, in summary, I think there's a massive amount still for CSMs to do. I think it's going to make the role and the industry, the profession, even more exciting, even more dealing with the more challenging parts of it. I think AI and technology is going to help us deliver more and more value. But it is, I preface this, we're still at the beginning. Where this is going in 5, 10, 15 years is quite scary to the pace of change. We don't know. And it may be that there are some radical shifts that we see over those time frames. But I still, for me, I'm really, really excited by where this is going and what changes it's going to do for us.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. Thank you very much for that. And again, just to say in the chat room, there's several of us here on the call. Please don't be a stranger. Please do submit your own thoughts and questions into the chat window. Tell us what you think about how far right now AI might be able to increase productivity or replace CSMs, and how long you think that's going to last. I completely understand everything you've said, Jason. Of course, you've been very clear about it, and I'm not a million miles away, but I would say that I would still say that I think that the moment of where AI can do it without the human being is a lot closer than I think you think. And I would submit to you, and I think I did tell you this anecdote before, and I apologize in advance because I really can't remember what documentary or program or whatever radio show I was listening to, but nevertheless there I was, and it was an AI system that was engaged as a personal assistant to an executive, and that executive told the AI to book me a haircut, and it said sure thing, and it knew what to do. It didn't need to have to be explained what was needed. So it looked up the that person's favorite hairdresser, put a call in, and the hairdresser obviously answered at the other end. Hi, this is PJ's hairdressers. How can I help you? And the AI said, hi, I'm the PA of Sue, who comes to you on a regular basis for her haircuts. I'd like to make an appointment for her, please, for sometime next week. Would that be possible? And it was just done in that casual, informal, human being talking sort of way. And the person at the other end had no idea they were talking to an AI, and said, oh, hold on a minute, please, let me just get the appointment book. And she said, okay, so are you looking for a morning or an afternoon? And the AI even went, I think a morning would be better, please, sometime early in the week. And I'm not going to go through the whole but basically the whole conversation, like toing and froing, friendly, little bits and pieces that was very human. Ended with the appointment being made and the phone being put down, and that person at the other end from the hairdresser had no idea that they'd been speaking to an AI whatsoever. Now, I do not know whether that actually was acted and we were told in the documentary this was a real AI doing all of these things, or whether that was the one conversation it was able to have, and it couldn't do anything else, and it was actually really, I don't know the parameters, okay, but what I do know is that it came across as extremely, you would not, from the voice and the semantics and the way, it did not sound like an artificial voice, like you kind of get on YouTube at the moment, if an artificial voice is chosen instead of a human presenter, where the words are in this. It's nothing like that whatsoever. As AI moves forwards to the level where we don't know whether we're talking to a human or an AI, except for face-to-face, of course, which is now we're talking about a whole and more complex set of problems and situations. What is the difference between me employing an AI to do customer success management remotely, and employing a CSM to do customer success management remotely?
It's a good one. And I if we can get, because you've also got, in addition to the voice, we've got video. You can get AI video today.
Oh, very good. Yeah,
very, very powerful. You look at the latest Indiana Jones movie, the likes of Deepfake, a young Indiana Jones. You can tell.
I haven't seen the Indiana Jones, but I love those. What's the name of the Top Gun guy?
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, there's the Deepfake Tom Cruise stuff on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, guys, just type in Deepfake Tom Cruise and you'll find them. They're hilarious and brilliant.
But they are so impressive. So again, you've got a young Indiana Jones that is Harrison Ford young, and they've done it. I'm a big Star Wars fan. They've done it in those movies. So I don't think we're a million miles away from having an AI as a human avatar who looks like an and speaking. You get tools today. Where
it's difficult face to face, but in the remote world, we all live in the virtual world now. So anyway, there's a couple of questions come in, or comments come in. So let's go to those. David Delosio, first of all, two sides to this discussion: intuition versus pure intelligence. And from a CS perspective, I do not think AI can appeal to the emotional or insecure tendencies that humans need to recognize and address, because it's not human. So, and that, I think, Jason, is kind of the side you're on a little bit, as I understand it. Yeah,
it is. I think you're right, and it's a really good thing that. And so I don't think right now we can do that. I think in the future possibly, but it's.
I think it's rapidly learning. I take your point, but like I said, that example of the hairdresser thing, that hairdresser receptionist had no idea she was talking to an AI. And as I can't, I don't know, because I don't have the data to know how real, whether it was entirely, as they presented it, or whether there was whether they were cheating at all.
It's interesting, the note about intuition. I think the note about intuition is really a key one. It's like gut instinct. What is intuition based on? What is gut instinct based on? It's based
very nuanced, isn't it? Yeah.
Experience. What's experience? Data. So AI could have intuition.
It is purely. It is only just a layer of nuance. That's all. So something looks odd or sounds not quite right to us because we've had 30, 40, 50 years or more, in my case, of experience in the world, and those years have told us just didn't quite look right. Someone wouldn't say that or do that or whatever. No, that's AI. Okay, but AI is getting there. Yeah, it is only a question of it just its refinement only. I suggest, and I don't think it's far away. Neil Johnston, has anyone, and this is an interesting point, particularly his last question here, has anyone used AI for things like note-taking or meeting tools, things like Update AI or Fathom, to summarize a customer meeting? And if so, did the customer assuming you told them, which obviously you should do, raise any concerns about data privacy. So there's an interesting point, is can we trust AI? Okay, can we trust our own AI, and can we trust other organizations' AI? That's a really interesting point. Any thoughts on that, Jason?
I think it's actually a big one. I think right now it's a challenge for a lot of organizations taking up some AI, because it is a third-party service. You've got to look at things like GDPR. Where is the data? Who's processing it? What data have you got? What are you doing for compliance? So there's lots of questions and conversations around that still. And I think a lot of organizations are holding back from that. So there are big privacy concerns where, people asking ChatGPT all these questions. What's happening to that data? A lot of people are just throwing information at it.
It's like the TikTok thing, isn't it?
Completely.
So, I mean, if that software was made in China, it may be, regardless of what we think, maybe all of these conversations are going straight to who knows where. I don't know.
I think these are considerations.
To be quite honest with you, I wouldn't say the three-letter agencies in the West are any better whatsoever, to be quite honest with you. So
I think these are things we've got to be very wary of. You've got to be super aware of this. And I think
great point.
It's probably.
Do you know about the trolley test? Don't you know about the famous philosophical
remind me?
The trolley test. That's where effectively you've got when it's called a trolley, but let's make it a bit more like normal language. It's the philosophy question that says, let's say you see a train coming down the track, and if it continues in the direction it's going, it will run over 3 people. But if you divert it, it will only run over 1 person. So you've got to pull the lever for that. So should you pull the lever so that instead of the train going off to the left, as it currently will do, and running and killing 3 people, you are preventing that. But in doing so, this other person who is not on the track that they ought not to be on, but they're going to die because you're diverting the train onto the track it ought not to be on, and it's going to run over that innocent person. Should you pull the lever?
There is no right answer to it either.
And I think even that you can't say, right? I don't think you can even say that. I personally, but the point is if you put an AI in charge of a vehicle, a moving vehicle, it will make that decision. So, for example, if a child runs into the road, should it swerve to avoid the child and in so doing cause some other accident? And if it does swerve to avoid the child and in doing so kill someone, who's responsible?
Yep. These are all big questions that start to be asked, aren't they? And even you can say, the decision to swerve or not swerve, at some point that's been coded, programmed by humans being involved. Is there some bias in that initial development? Yeah. So it's fascinating. These are all things.
Well, and the answer has to be yes. We're that's how it works, right? I mean, we're programmed to do something one way or the other. It's the programming that will do it. And so I might decide to run over the child. You might decide to swerve to avoid the child. It might be for very good reasons, i.e. you're worried about the child, I'm worried about not causing another accident, and actually in either case, they could be justified in a court of law as a human. But as an AI, that's different. Because the AI should know best, right? And if it's not, then it shouldn't be in control of it. So human beings are going to be forgiven in a sense more than AIs. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to say?
Yeah, you almost then bring in, if the AI should know the best, are all AI equal? Are they all built the same? Is one better?
Neither are they necessarily better than a human, and certainly not.
Absolutely,
they could be a lot worse at making those decisions. They might be causing a lot of problems. I love the Space 2001. We talked about this with you, Monsang, a couple of weeks ago. But the whole problem with Hal deciding that he wouldn't allow them to open the pod bay doors or whatever, to allow them to get air or whatever the situation. I can't remember the exact details, but effectively it was doing it because it was programmed as an AI to survive. And what it was trying to do was survive for itself. And what it recognized to do that was it had to kill the humans for it to survive.
It's your Terminator-esque scenario, isn't it?
Yeah. Now we're moving into exciting territory. So who said AI wasn't exciting? So,
these are all big, I think, big philosophical things that we need to think about here. You know, what parts of these decisions do we want to automate? What makes sense to automate?
Yeah, well, right. And if it does go wrong, do we sue the person who bought it? Do we sue the person who was running it? Do we sue the person who developed it? Do we sue the person who supplied the data that the developer used to teach it? Yeah, who's responsible? Who is responsible for the AI itself? I mean, is the AI responsible? Does the AI vote? Does the AI become like its own entity? Like, there's only really, like, legally, what entities are there? Like, there's human beings and there's businesses, right? If you form a limited company, it has its own little certificate, like we've got a birth certificate. The company's got a certificate. It's a separate entity, by which I mean you can sue that entity. You can't sue a thing that doesn't exist, so it's got to exist in its own right. So you can now, take it to court and sue it, so it becomes its own entity. Does an AI become its own entity?
Fascinating. Yeah.
All right, we've probably talked. We're going far too philosophical here, aren't we? I do apologise if we're getting off the topic here. David again, exactly that, and I remember when he wrote this, exactly that. To your points, Jason, gut instinct, predictive behaviour based on personality types, adjusting the tone of the conversation on the fly. And yes, these are all things that I think AI is either already there or very nearly there. Okay. The AI should know best. Scary thought, isn't it? Just what if by swerving, this is the trolley test that we were talking about, it runs the car off a cliff? Yeah, right. And then so it doesn't kill any innocent third party. It kills the people inside the trolley. Absolutely possible. So all sorts of things that could be. Absolutely, that's a great what if. I mean, it wasn't in that particular. The scenario is very kept simple. Just because you got basically two choices: kill those people by not interfering, or interfere and kill less people. Was the specific
but it is, like you say, it's that third choice: don't kill anyone. Do something to yourself.
That was not on offer, unfortunately. That someone had already taken that cake. It wasn't left on the plate. So all right, let me go back, if I may, to my screen. And in the last little bit, I'd like to just share. Can you see that? Probably, maybe now. Can you see the screen? I don't know if you can.
I can just see the same screen you had before, Rick.
Yeah, same screen as I had before. Yeah, you can see it. Yeah. All right. I want to talk about, okay, let's move into like customer success management and what we actually do. So I'm going to say this is, if whichever side of the coin you're on, we are all agreed that AI is going to make a change to customer success management. I'm saying leading to potentially redundancies, but regardless of whether that's the case or whether it's just a case of you doing other things, then it still needs to be understood. So what I'm saying first of all is, then if you are thinking about this and thinking, well, what do I do in order to be able to adapt to the new world that includes AI in it and an increasing amount, I'd say the first thing to do is to know what you do currently. If you don't know what you do, how do you know how to react to something coming in as a tool that could potentially do some of what you do? So know what you do. So I've put up there my practical CSM framework, which divides the typical customer engagement into 7 phases: preparation, commitment, onboarding, adoption planning, adoption implementation, and value realization. And each of these has a list of tasks. These are the things we do. Okay, so we need to know what are the things we do. And then for each thing, once we know, well, what are the tasks? How often do we perform them? How much time does it take us to do them? How accurate are we at them? What is a reasonable margin of error or accuracy for those things? And realistically, for each of those tasks, could AI do it? And if the answer to that is yes, then could it do it better or worse than what I can do? So that would be my start point for thinking about my role and how AI might impact it. And I would then broaden that out, because that's very specific to me, to think more organizationally, to say, well, how much appetite for automation does my company have? And that's like a risk thing, like we were talking about, who's going to get sued if it goes wrong, that sort of issue. How competitive is my sector? So in other words, how much do they have to take that risk, and really squeeze productivity as much as possible? How niche or how difficult to replace am I? And expertise, to me, means a combination of knowledge and skills. Okay, so it's the experience that I've got and the knowledge that I've acquired gives me that expertise. How difficult is that to replicate in an AI system? What do we currently do that AI struggles to do well? And then, okay, what could we add to that? What else could we do that we don't currently do that AI struggles to do well, at least at the moment? And these are the sorts of questions that I would suggest that we need to be asking ourselves. And if on the other side of the coin we are a manager and we're saying, yeah, I want to use AI, I want to increase AI, then what we need to do is prepare the road for AI through having data available for it, because the AI is only as good as the data we provide it with. As you said to me, Jason, the other day, rubbish in equals rubbish out, just like it has always done in the world of computing.
And it applies even more with AI as that data set increases and increases, and you look at
and it's harder to find where the problem lies.
Absolutely, but that incorrect data could have a bigger and bigger impact now if we're using it to fully automate decisions. So it becomes even more critical.
So then just to run through this list, and then I'm done, and then I'll let you sort of speak, Jason. But in terms of know your data, do you know what data is needed? Do you know how much of it is already in the digital world? And if it isn't, do you know how you could get it into the digital world? Okay, so we need it in ones and zeros, because otherwise AI can't use it. Who owns it? Do we have permission to use it? And do we have access to it? How accurate, reliable, and up-to-date is it? How secure is it? In what format is it? And is that a format that is already usable? Or if not, can we take it and just reformat it fairly easily and translate it from one language to another, as it were, or from one system into another system? So that are the things we need to think about in terms of preparing our organization to have maximum use of AI and get the maximum value out of AI, is by preparing the data. So again, I want to turn to you for any thoughts that you have.
Kind of a key thing to add on top is, and as you said, you've got to be aware and in line with kind of legal compliance guidelines. I think that's something we're seeing bigger and bigger considerations for there. Today, when it comes to data, we've got GDPR and similar rulings, but as AI grows, we're going to see more of these coming in. And I think that's going to be a big consideration. So the understanding of how that fits in and where compliance sits is really big. I think the other thing is the data sets are going to grow and grow exponentially almost. And you've got to look at, where does that data sit? How do we manage those amounts of data physically? Who's storing them? What are we paying for? What's the value we're getting? How much investment do we want to pay into that data? I think is super important to consider. I think when you look at, going back to your previous slide there, Rick, when you're looking at a CSM, I think some of the things that you can, there's absolutely value in automation of tasks. Your example of the AI booking a hair appointment, I can see value in that. That is for me is a really good use case. AI looking at a calendar, making assessment of not just when is there a gap in the calendar, but if I'm at this place and this place and I've got a gap between, where can I get to? Making an intelligent decision around that and booking appointments for me absolutely makes sense. And there are tools out there that can do that today. So I think that's a good use. We can actually work with our customers to make better use of calendars and booking appointments and meetings. AI today can help us make better summaries of conversations. Again, you've got to be consider what data we're sharing with it, but it can give you more insights into outlines from meetings, conversations you have. The example that I think David wrote about, using the likes of ChatGPT to help with emails, to draft copy, to draft responses, to even base it on your conversation style. ChatGPT, you can share with it examples of how you write, and make it write for you based as you, which is a really interesting thing to do. And I think we're seeing a big, the idea of AI writing assistants is to write copy for blogs, for emails, for social media posts, even LinkedIn. I did a post on LinkedIn yesterday, and there's an AI tool on LinkedIn that kind of helps give you more information and helps better position your posts. So I think that adds value for us. You'd say, well, what about copywriters? I think there's still value for a human to read it and make sure it makes sense, but it helps most of us with things that we couldn't normally do. So I think it helps around automation, and goes back to what I said earlier on. What's the value that I can really bring in? What are the tasks that I can do and really drive for my customers, really drive value? And I think those things are still where we can really, really see value. But I think that slide about knowing your job is a really key one. And I think we all need to do this, is what parts of our roles today, we're talking about CSMs, but there's other roles in CS, your ops role, your head of CS role, the data roles. What parts Absolutely. Can we automate? What parts make sense to automate? What parts do we enjoy doing? So I think there's lots of considerations, but I think we've still, Neil saying there, a lot of food for thought. There's still considerations about where this goes. But I go back to my first point. This is early days. I'm not saying within 5-10 years there will be some changes, some role changes. I think there will be, but I go back to what I said earlier on. I think it's about evolution, and I think we're in a better position to understand what that evolution needs to be.
Well, I think you're right there, and I think that obviously only time will tell, but we need to invest as individuals as well as organizations in understanding this new world, because like it or not, it's happening. It's not something that we can stop, like King Canute in front of the tide. You can't stop the sea from coming in. You can't stop AI from coming in. Yeah, you got to bring a space monkey into it at some stage, David, or we haven't had a proper conversation. So I think for me, I would say there are concerns for individuals around this could take your job away if you allow it to do so, let's put it that way. And the allowing it to do so is about ignoring the issue and not actually adapting to the situation, which I think is, Jason, what you originally said, which is that it's not about not having a job, it's about what you do and changing what you do. But that does mean that you've got to be, because I believe if there's 20 on a team, it may be the case that actually only 10 are needed, because AI will do some of it, in which case, how do you become one of the 10 that stay? Well, what we've got here, and an understanding of this stuff that we've just been talking about, I think is really important. So that is my message, is get to grips right now with what you do that is harder. And I would suggest, at the moment at least, I am in agreement that at the moment the bit that is the most difficult for AI to do is human relationships and human interaction. And at the moment, our clients, even if the AI is better than us, might still trust us more than they trust an AI telling them. They want a human telling them, and they want a human to interact with and a human to complain and shout at. Because what's the fun if you're like, if you've got a problem and you're shouting at an AI? I mean, that's no fun, is it? You want to shout at human. You want them to understand and respond accordingly and apologize and mean it. Does an AI mean it? Well, there's a thought. Only if it's conscious. Otherwise,
that's a great closing thought, Rick. You know, does AI mean it? But what does that even mean? You know,
what does consciousness mean? Please join us on Philosophy Monthly month, Jason and I, and we will talk about consciousness and AI.
It'll be our avatar.
Now, on that bombshell, Jason, it's been a great conversation as always. Thank you everybody for your contributions. We've really enjoyed those, and I hope you've enjoyed this. And as has been said, there's some food for thought there for us all. Really appreciate it, Jason. We'll have you back just as soon as we possibly can for more shenanigans. For now, from myself and from Jason, thank you. Please fill out the evaluation. You're not allowed to not do it. Fill out the evaluation. The link is there. You've got no excuses. Thank you all very much indeed.
Thank you, Rick.
Take care, everybody. That's it for us for today. See you next month.